Welcome to Movie Galaxy. In the opening scene, Charlie and his son Anatole say goodbye to Charlie's mother after a visit. Charlie, a former mafia boss, now lives a quiet life with his wife and two kids. On this trip, only Anatole and their dog are with him, and they enjoy each other's company, listening to classical music on the way home. This shows Charlie's love for his children. When they get back to the city, Anatole gets out of the car to watch a man and his goat perform tricks, while Charlie parks the car in an underground garage. He stays in the car for a moment, enjoying the music, but as he steps out, 8 hitmen suddenly open fire, shooting Charlie 22 times and killing his dog. They quickly flee, leaving Charlie badly injured and near death. Somehow, Charlie regains consciousness, with Anatole still upstairs alone. As he lies there, he remembers his time in prison with a mafia leader named Pavano, who taught him everything about the mafia life. Pavano's advice to always stay alert echoes in Charlie's mind. Charlie is rushed to the hospital after the attack. Meanwhile, his close friend and successor, Tony Zacchia, becomes worried when he hears about what happened. News of the attack on Charlie, one of the last mafia godfathers, spreads quickly, and Detective Marie Goldman arrives at the crime scene to investigate. As surgeons work hard to remove the bullets from Charlie, he remembers hearing about the assassination of Pavano, his mafia boss, by his enemy Hernandez, who even attended the funeral. Back when Charlie was younger, he, Tony, and their friend Aurelio had planned to get revenge on Hernandez. They tracked him down, with Tony driving, while Charlie brutally shot Hernandez to death. Later, Charlie's second wife, Anatole's mother, arrives at the hospital with their daughter Eva to visit Charlie as he recovers. Meanwhile, Detective Marie meets with the police chief about Charlie's case, but the chief thinks Charlie was a gangster and doesn't want to rush the investigation. Marie insists on following proper procedure, and the chief finally agrees, though he doubts Charlie will give her any useful information. Marie and another officer go to question Charlie at the hospital, but he just stares at her in silence. She warns him that his attackers might come back to finish the job and asks for his help, but Charlie leans in close and whispers, "No." After that, Charlie's lawyer convinces them to leave just as 2 of Charlie's old henchmen arrive. Later, at home, Marie talks with her son, who asks her about his father's death. Her son's father was also a police officer, and the question shakes Marie. She tries to comfort him, saying his dad is in a better place and watching over them, even though tears run down her face. Outside the hospital, Charlie's lawyer, Martin, and one of his old henchmen, Kareem, argue about what to do next. Kareem wants to strike back, but Martin points out they don't know who the attackers are. Kareem finally agrees, but warns Martin not to leave Charlie's side. Meanwhile, an assassin disguised as a doctor sneaks into the hospital. He pulls out a gun and shoots into Charlie's room, but his henchwoman, Pat, had already moved Charlie to another room. The assassin ends up killing an innocent patient thinking it's Charlie. After this, Marie sets up surveillance around Charlie's room and the hospital for protection. The next day, Tony visits Charlie at the hospital, bringing flowers. His men stay outside while Tony enters the room. He's relieved to see Charlie looking better and leaves him with a picture of the patron saint of healing and a box of chocolates, promising to find out who attacked him. Later, a doctor tells Marie about Charlie's refusal to undergo anesthesia because he's afraid of what might happen if he's unconscious. When he won't leave his room for an X-ray, they discover he's hiding a gun under his mattress. In the next scene, Martin is at home with Charlie's sick wife and their daughter Eva, who is upstairs blasting loud music. Martin goes to her room and asks her to turn it down, but he finds Eva crying in bed. He comforts her, telling her not to cry, but Eva is heartbroken over her father. She believes her father has lied about being in the mafia and thinks he doesn't care about her or her mother. Back at the hospital, Charlie stabs himself in the hand with a fork, showing that he can't feel anything. The doctor warns him that if the nerve is damaged, he won't be able to use his right arm. Charlie's mother tells him that God saved his life for a reason, urging him to change, and makes him promise that she will die before he does. Marie and her partner continue investigating Charlie's attack and suspect a criminal named Pistachio, who is in jail. She meets with Pistachio, accusing him of arranging the hit on Charlie, but Pistachio denies any involvement and refuses to talk. Meanwhile, Kareem discovers a man bragging about the attack and, along with Martin, informs Charlie. The 3 leave the hospital in a car, but Marie and her team start following them. Kareem realizes they're being followed, and a high-speed chase ensues. Kareem calls in a favor, and a car blocks Marie's path, allowing the 3 men to escape. They arrive at an old warehouse where Pat has already captured and has given the man some substance, shackling his feet in concrete. The man's name is Frederick, and Charlie promises not to hurt him if he tells the truth. Under the influence of the drugs, Frederick confesses that he works for Tony and reveals that Tony, along with 7 others, was behind the attack. Charlie is shocked and wants to understand why. He learns that when he sold his business to Tony, Tony saw it as an opportunity to take over completely and partnered with Pistachio. Fearing how Charlie might react, Tony decided to strike first. Charlie is furious but orders Kareem not to retaliate yet. Kareem warns Charlie that Frederick will likely inform Tony about their meeting, but Charlie can't bring himself to start a war with his old friend. Instead, he orders Frederick to go home. Afterward, Charlie returns to his house, reuniting with his wife and children. Marie shows up but doesn't interfere. Later, Kareem has dinner with his family. As he's about to leave, a black van pulls up and he's kidnapped. The men take Kareem to a secluded spot and brutally beat him. Frederick had betrayed him to Tony's men, and they let Frederick finish the job by killing Kareem before they shoot him. One of the men then delivers a message from Tony for Charlie before executing Kareem. The next day, Charlie's wife receives a gruesome package with a mutilated part of Kareem's body. Charlie attends Kareem's funeral shortly afterward. While the men pray, the women stand aside, crying, with Pat looking devastated. Meanwhile, Tony's men celebrate their success. Charlie watches the pain around him, particularly Kareem's father's grief. Feeling the weight of it all, Charlie hugs his family tightly and instructs Pat to protect them. While Tony's men continue their celebration, one of them, Pascal, begins mocking Tony for his stammer and for always reprimanding them for smoking in his house. Suddenly, Charlie bursts in, armed with a live grenade and a rifle. He orders all the men to disarm, and the maid collects their firearms and dumps them into a tank. Charlie makes it clear that they should fear him, not just today, but every day. He won't kill them right now, but he warns that he could show up unexpectedly at any time. Charlie then recognizes one of the shooters, Bastian, and tells him he's first on the list. Without hesitation, Charlie shoots him dead. 6 months later, Eva is tired of living in hiding with her stepmother, Pat, and asks to return home to be with her dying mother. Pat warns her about the dangerous men hunting them, but when Eva's grandmother arrives, Eva feels reassured. Meanwhile, when Charlie shows up at Bastian's grave, one of Bastian's friends comes to lay flowers and reminisce about the good times they had together. Despite the man's claim that he was only following orders, Charlie shoots him dead without hesitation. A few days later, Marie goes to meet Tony, but as she arrives, a man plants a tracker under her car. During their conversation, Marie questions Tony about the deaths of his men. Tony suspects Charlie but lies, claiming that Charlie has always been jealous of him. He even suggests that Marie and he should work together, hinting that he knows about her son. Despite his offer, Marie refuses to collaborate with a criminal like Tony. Tony's men break into Martin's flat, trash it, and set off a concussive explosion. When Martin returns home, he notices the destruction and quickly flees, but one of Tony's men follows him and alerts the gang. Desperate, Martin visits Charlie at his seaside retreat. Charlie warns him about being followed, but Martin insists that no one is tailing him. He then tells Charlie about Tony's recent attacks on their businesses and homes. Realizing they've been located, Charlie hands Martin a gun and tells him to flee to the speedboat. As Martin heads for the boat, a shootout erupts between Charlie and Tony's men. Martin reaches the boat, but the men release dogs, which quickly catch up and corner him. Meanwhile, Tony's men tear apart Charlie's house, but Charlie manages to escape on a motorcycle. The men chase him, firing shots, but Charlie stays ahead. The pursuit takes him into the city, where he deliberately crashes into a police car, forcing the authorities to intervene and surround him, saving him from the attackers. Later, Tony captures Martin and threatens to end their old friendship if he doesn't reveal Charlie's location. At the same time, Marie confronts Charlie, accusing him of killing Tony's men and threatening others. Charlie denies this, pointing out that he can't even use his arm. Marie then tells him that one of the 8 attackers from that day wasn't trying to kill him and had intentionally missed. Charlie brushes off this information. Despite her suspicions, Marie is forced to release Charlie. A few days later, while walking with his elderly mother in the park, Charlie fatally shoots one of the 8 men involved in his attack. Soon after, he finds another target, Frank, who is out walking his dogs. Charlie approaches and shoots Frank in the foot, demanding information. When Frank refuses to talk, Charlie shoots him in the other foot. Desperate and in pain, Frank pleads for an ambulance, but Charlie is only interested in finding out who the 8th attacker was at the parking lot. Meanwhile, Tony, attending a wedding, hears about Frank's disappearance and sends his men to track him down. Frank denies knowing the identity of the eighth man, claiming he's never seen his face, but Charlie doesn't believe him. Panicking, Frank offers to give Charlie crucial information about Tony instead. He accesses the mafia's computers and provides Charlie with all of Tony's black market transactions and connections. As Tony's men arrive at the scene and notice Frank's empty van, one of them draws his gun. The barking dogs alert Charlie just in time, and a gunfight breaks out. Charlie manages to shoot the attacker, but in the chaos, Frank escapes. Charlie grabs the flash drive, then locates Frank in the next room. The injured man calls Tony, who quickly gathers his men and heads out in pursuit. Meanwhile, Frank, knowing his time is short, begs Charlie not to kill him. He tells Charlie about his daughter, showing him a toy he claims belongs to her. But when Charlie examines it, he finds substance hidden inside. Frank pleads for forgiveness, and Charlie grants it, but only with 2 bullets that end his life. Tony arrives at the scene, furious that he's lost track of Charlie yet again. Enraged, he orders his men to find Charlie and wipe out his entire family. As one of Tony's men, who had just been a groom at the wedding, drives home, he encounters a car blocking the road. When he steps out to confront the situation, 2 quick shots take him down. Marie analyzes the gun from the groom's murder and finds Charlie's fingerprints on it, which heightens suspicion. Meanwhile, Charlie meets with Martin in a tavern crawling with police. Charlie knows Tony is trying to frame him for multiple murders to divert police attention onto him. He hands Martin the flash drive with Tony's black market data, instructing him to make a copy and deliver it to their ally, Aurelio. At the police station, Marie argues with her supervisor, expressing doubt that Charlie is behind the recent hits. However, the captain is fixated on arresting Charlie and orders Marie to prepare a warrant for his capture. When Marie realizes that Charlie has a son, Anatole, who attends school, she sits alone in her car, drinking and confident that if they find Anatole, they will also find Charlie. The next day, Pat picks up Anatole from school, aware that Marie and her partner are following them. Pat then picks up Eva, but soon a scarlet car cuts them off, and a van pulls up with armed men who open fire, killing Pat instantly. Marie and her companion try to intervene, but the attackers' weapons are too powerful, and the men manage to capture Anatole and Eva. A few hours later, the police rescue Eva, but Anatole remains in captivity. Eva warns them that the attackers will kill Anatole if Charlie doesn't surrender. Marie returns to her car, where Charlie meets her. He reveals that Tony was responsible for her husband's death and warns that Tony will also kill Anatole unless she helps him. Charlie proposes that Marie leak information about his capture, so Tony will lower his guard and come for Anatole. Skeptical at first, Marie listens as Charlie promises to turn himself in afterward, showing his dedication to saving his son. She reluctantly agrees. Meanwhile, Tony learns that Anatole has been captured and instructs his men to take care of him. One of Tony's men expresses concern that they've gone too far, but Tony remains resolute, ordering Aurelio's execution as well. Charlie spots Pascal leaving Tony's apartment and begins following him. He tracks Pascal to a secluded, heavily guarded building surrounded by fences. Determined to rescue his son, Charlie struggles against barbed wires and other obstacles to break in, desperately trying to reach Anatole. Meanwhile, Pascal orders his underling to kill Anatole, but the young man hesitates, finding the act too cruel. Pascal threatens to stab him if he refuses, but as Pascal turns away, the man hits him over the head with a shovel and tries to flee, attempting to rescue Anatole. However, Pascal quickly recovers, stabs the man to death, and drags Anatole to his car. Charlie spots Pascal trying to escape with Anatole and leaps onto the car, causing it to crash. Pascal jumps out, wielding a knife, and slashes at Charlie's right arm. Charlie overpowers Pascal, knocking him down and eventually breaking his neck. With Pascal defeated, Charlie pulls Anatole from the wrecked car, and they embrace in tears. At the same time, a raid on Aurelio leaves Tony's men dead. Aurelio himself is in critical condition, but the police recover a flash drive from his jacket, which could be crucial to the investigation. Meanwhile, Tony, alone at home, feels an ominous sensation and rushes out to find his family. When he arrives, Charlie is there, ambushing him with a gun in hand. The 2 men engage in a heated argument, each defending their choices in life. Tony is furious with Charlie for abandoning their criminal world in favor of a peaceful life, as if he thought he was better than them. Tony, filled with bitterness, demands that Charlie finish the job and kill him. But as Charlie hesitates, to kill his former best friend despite everything, Tony quickly turns the tables, pointing a gun at Charlie and beating him. He forces Charlie to beg for his life, but when Charlie refuses, Tony pours hot water over his head. Just as Tony is about to pull the trigger, police officers rush into the building, guns drawn, and arrest both men. After his release from the police station, Martin arrives to pick up Charlie. Charlie directs him to a specific location, and they drive to the parking garage where Charlie was previously attacked. Once there, Charlie confesses that he knew Martin was the eighth shooter. Martin hesitates but admits that Tony had pressured him to join the men, and he didn't realize Charlie was the target. He reassures Charlie that he didn't shoot him and pleads for his life. In response, Charlie fires a few shots near him, telling Martin that they are now even for everything that happened. The film ends with Charlie relaxing on the beach with his wife and children and enjoying a peaceful moment with his family. Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe so as to watch our latest uploads.